Sure, yeah.
All right, so we are taking a look at the post-gen version of It's Closing Time, and I am joined by Ynda. So you were one of two people that worked on this game?
Yeah, that's
Or,
correct.
yeah,
Yeah, the last game that you played of mine called Gay Ray.
yeah.
Once, so my friend did some of the voices for that one. But he's training as a UX designer at the moment. So yeah, he came on board in a bigger role for this one and did did all of the artwork basically. So
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
yeah, we kind of split it up between him doing the artwork and me doing the programming. And we shared the kind of creative idea generation side of it.
Yeah, it's a fun little, I guess you'd call it a stress management game?
Yeah, I think so. I kind of thought when we came up with the idea, it's kind of like an anti-sim almost. Like
Mm.
you're kind of doing, it's kind of simish, but also like overcooked style, but you're kind of doing the wrong thing in a way. I mean, the goal is to get rid of customers, so you're kind of doing the right thing to get rid of customers, but you're not doing the thing that you would expect of someone in a cafe. It's kind of antisocial cafe worker almost.
Yeah, because I left the screen up there for a little bit, but essentially you have three types of customers. You have the little ghosts who cannot stand loud noises, so we
Yeah,
manage the radio. But each time you do something to get rid of a customer, it also subsequently causes damage to your shop that you then need to go and repair.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think we didn't quite get the balance right for the jam version or the post jam, which has just had like 2 or 3 small updates. But yeah, that's the principle. Is yeah, make sure that your shop is tidy by the end of it, but do annoying things to get rid of customers rather than just serving them, which is what you would do in a more kind of traditional overcooked style game.
Right. I think that I'm just going to mention it now because I happened to run into it, but um, the fact that you've got these little one-way platforms you can jump on just fine here, but then this wall up here is not one, like you sorry, like I can walk through these, but not the second
Mm.
floor, like you sort of crash into that.
Mm.
Is there
Yeah,
just like a different type of collider that you use there, or?
yeah. So it's a one way. So in Godot you can set up one way collisions. I think you can rotate them and put the one way in a different direction. But basically, yeah, you can collide if you're dropping down onto it, but not if you're going up.
Right.
But yeah, the top floor is just solid, so it's every direction is collision basically. So it's effectively a solid floor, whereas the other ones are just downward collision platforms. I guess that does create a bit of a lip there that feels a bit weird, maybe, but yeah, the idea was that you can just get up easily enough and then stay up.
Yeah, I think it's just because like you if you wanted to try to sort of shortcut this,
Yeah.
like drop down from here, then that's where you sort of run into not being able to do that.
Mm. Yeah, I think my friend had the idea that it's kind of like a compulsory step down, but maybe it might feel weird from a gameplay standpoint. But yeah, we kind of consciously didn't let you take a shortcut, but it might be a good idea to allow that.
I mean, it. You mentioned Overcook. Like, would you consider that to be an actual inspiration, or?
I mean, I don't think it has the kind of frantic and unpredictable style of something like Overcooked, but I guess just the fact that it's sort of catering based and time based, and you have to do a certain amount of stuff before the time is up. That kind of stuff is kind of taking inspiration from Overcooked, but on a fairly loose level, I'd say.
Yeah, just because I can imagine like it would almost be funny if your character like the manager gets annoyed at you for doing these kind of things
Mm.
and you get fired, and then it gives you a justification for why every level would be a different coffee shop because you just keep on
Yeah,
getting fired from your job. You
that would
work
be
one
cool. Yeah.
day and then you get fired and you have to work somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, I like that idea. I think I did at some point have an idea of having some kind of manager who might get annoyed at you, or you need to kind of hide what you're doing from the manager in some kind of way. But it wasn't in scope for the Jam version. But yeah, I think it might be nice to have some other presence other than just you and the customers.
Yeah, I mean I like the fact that each one of these things you interact with is different. Like the coffee machine, you can break it just from standing in front of it. The loudspeaker, you can click as many times as you want. You just have to then go and deal with all the consequences of that. And then the milk, I guess it is, you have to individually go around and clean it up before you can cause another mess, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much logic to that, but yeah, the idea was that we would have some slightly different requirements for each interaction, just to give it a bit of variety. But yeah, there's not a lot of logic to. I mean, the coffee machine, obviously, you can't break it again until you fixed it. But the oat milk, there's no reason you couldn't have more oat milk. I guess the idea was that you need to clean it up before you can spill it again. But I don't know if within the game world you're cleaning it up and then pouring it back into the carton or something.
I was gonna say you're just wringing the cloth out and back into it. Oh, I hard
Maybe.
failed that level. Oh my gosh, that would be a pretty hilarious visual. Is like the carton is empty, like it's knocked over, and you like if you had an animation, the character like walk over and just like.
Yeah. Yeah, if we had more time, I think we could build in some of that comedy a bit more.
Yeah. But yeah, I was saying that I in principle, I like the idea of being able to like combo certain things. Like if you have to clean up the milk and repair the wall at the same time. Like I know that doesn't make sense, but that's kind of an emergent thing that's happened with the gameplay here. Because that seems like that's the best way to do well in the game, is you if you're lucky, then multiple problems will overlap and you can fix them both at the same time.
Yeah. I think what you were saying before, though, about the fact that the problems can kind of turn up anywhere and you can be unlucky, I think we probably should, in some way, balance that out. I don't really know how. Maybe you can just take stock of the amount of time left or where the current problems are and then fiddle with the odds a little bit. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I think there could be some balance there, because you could just get a horrible kind of final problem where it's right in the top right corner, and then you have 10 seconds left and it's too late. But yeah, there definitely were, as you say, the imagined things, but I think we should probably balance it a bit in terms of what is possible.
Yeah, I mean, because you don't want it to just be a memorization issue. Like, if there was a predictable pattern to the way that things went wrong, like with the coffee machine, at least you know if you break it, you have to fix it instantly. It's always in the exact same position. If different characters, instead of just coming up to the counter, if they sat at different places in the restaurant, and then like a carrot is sitting at a table, and then you go spill milk in front of them.
Yeah.
Then you know that, like, okay, I have to go to that carrot to spill milk. And then if the loudspeaker always breaks a window, and where that window is different every time. It's different every level, but it's always consistent within that level. So that way you know, like, okay, that loudspeaker is near that table, so I can break that window and then clean up the milk that's right next to that window at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you had slightly more, differentiated levels, but then a bit of kind of curated design. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm really just sort of coming up with something off the top of my head. I don't know if it lends to the same frenetic energy, because then the way to beat a level is to just memorize the pattern of how you do it. Like this is a game that you want some amount of randomness to.
Well, I think so. At the moment, the customer spawns are hard coded, but we could certainly randomize those so that you don't necessarily know what customers are coming up. Which I mean, yeah, if you have more of a fixed level design, that might still have some randomness to it. Or maybe there's a way that you can. I don't really know how to do this, but maybe you could procedurally generate something within some parameters.
Yeah, because with Overcooked, I think the meals that you cook each time, like the order the meals are ordered in, is randomized. I'd assume they are. I don't know
I
for
think so,
sure.
yeah. I think so, yeah.
So I guess I'm just trying to think of like you do want there to be some randomness, but you also want there to be some like some control the player can exert so it doesn't just feel like whether they succeed or fail is a matter of luck.
Yeah. I wonder if having slightly more complicated mechanics would allow you to kind of look at your queue and then work out what's the best way to maximize those if you can find some combos, which I think is something that comes into Overcooked a little bit as well. If you know that you need to chop 5 carrots, then you might decide to focus on that and then bring them all to the cooking pot or something rather than doing one at a time. So maybe if there's some way to combine the kind of mechanics in some way that allows you to optimize.
Yeah, I think that's like being able to see people, and that's where it might make more sense if people are actually moving into the space and getting seated at various positions, because then you can kind of visually take stock of like, ooh, I can pick up some milk and then go and spill it over by these 2 carrots and get them both to leave at the same time.
Yeah.
Or like maybe the position that milk spawns is what changes. Like it's always the same window that breaks, because I don't know. I'm really just coming up with stuff off the top of my head here, but I guess I should be asking the all important question of, do you have plans to continue working on this?
We do have a few things to work on. So some quality of life stuff, like I think the thing that you mentioned about the kind of feedback when you're having to hold something. That's one of the things. I think also a retry option, level select, music, all those kinds of things. Probably speeding up the time if you're in a winnable state, rather than having to wait 18 seconds on the first level if you've finished it at 4:42 or whatever. Yeah, some randomization. Maybe making the customers move at different speeds, but I think maybe that's a bit of a distraction from the things that actually would make it interesting. Yeah, so there are a bunch of quality of life things to work on, but I think also one of them is whether it'd be good to be able to choose a speed in some kind of way, possibly for accessibility or possibly just as a kind of difficulty slider, whether you need it for accessibility or not. But particularly when it comes to Sunday, it gets pretty tricky as it is. So yeah, having a way to reduce the speed so that you don't have to be quite so quick and do so much mental processing in a really quick way and jump about so quickly could be useful.
I'm amazed I managed to clear Sunday with even a single star the first time I played, because I failed it the last 2 times now.
Yeah, I think I've got 1 star on it before, possibly 2. I don't think I've ever got 3. I'm not sure how possible that is.
I think
so
it
yeah.
really comes down to the carrots and where the mess for them ends up, because you can end up having to go very far to clean it. Like,
Yeah.
because you can be you can have a lot of ghosts sort of like on the go, because you know you can just cause multiple problems, and that's just fine. Even the what's the name of the characters with the little mask?
Professionals, possibly.
Professionals, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Even with those, it's pretty linear because you can just basically stand still and keep on like having them move along.
Yeah.
Um, but it's the carrots. It always comes down to the carrots and seeing if you can chain those together,
Yeah.
or rather, like you're hoping that something else aligns with those, so that you can sort of chain it together, like get two things done at the same time.
Mm.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of like the small like polished details that you talked about that you have the opportunity to go in and make those changes. But
Mm.
yeah, I guess, is that going to be the main focus, or are you actually looking to expand on the content of what's here?
I think we definitely could. It's just finding something that gives it enough of a hook to be worth kind of putting more time into.
Yeah.
'Cause I think it's kind of nice as a jam game. I think it could be more, but I don't really know if we have like that solid hook that makes it more than a 10-minute experience.
Hmm.
But yeah, maybe we can play around with a few ideas and iterate and see if anything sticks. But at the moment, I think yeah, we have a few seeds of ideas, but nothing major that would necessarily grab people.
Yeah, I know what you mean in terms of like, oh, I just broke that for any reason. Um, and that's almost why I was thinking that if you're going to make any changes, that like, yes, you can add polish to this, but the
Mm,
question is if is it worth adding polish to an experience that you're not sure merits anything longer than that 10-minute play experience? And sometimes that's fine. Like there are absolutely
mm,
games that are like come and go, they're done within that time frame. And it's not to
yeah.
say that just because it's short doesn't mean that it's not worth putting more effort into polishing that experience.
Mm,
Um, but I'd almost be curious, like instead of investing the effort in polishing what's here, um, can you invest that effort into making some of the changes that we've discussed and
mm,
seeing how that feels? Like, do you does that lend itself to the game having um like, is the game like more compelling and more interesting to play at that point? And is it then worth investing the effort to polish the experience?
mm. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I guess at the moment this is my third game.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't have much experience of post jam work beyond these tiny changes. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what the next point would be. Like if we did add stuff to it, like where would it go from here?
Absolutely. I mean, it's
But
tough, right? Like you've got
yeah,
to pick like what is one single thing that you can iterate on to
mm,
make the experience a bit different. I'm opening my game here just for
mm,
illustrative purposes, um, because this is the post jam version of something that I made over a year ago with my friend Ferrosphere,
mm,
and I thought it would be interesting if to give a bit of context. This is a card battler game that is like Slay the Spire. Um, have you played Slay the Spire?
yeah, I've
Okay,
played maybe 5 or 6 runs, but each of like 2 hours each. So
cool,
I
cool.
got addicted to it very quickly, and then some other games came up. But I'll come back to it soon.
All right. Maybe I'll have to ask you to try this out because I'm looking for people who like those kind of card battler games to give me some feedback. But here's the crazy thing that I tried out. The original Jam version of this game, you had to manage your card draw. You
Mm,
had cards that you could play, like this Arcane Lock, which would drawing a card is baked into the card description, and
mm,
you one of the necromancer's ability, like that little purple guy in the back there, would make you discard your whole hand. Um, and there was a hand limit in the game where if you switch into the like water element, then you have a bigger hand limit, and there was a in the earth element, your hand limit decreases down to 3. So I
Mm.
said, and one of the main things that I got as feedback was people saying, I don't like the fact that I have fewer choices at a certain interval. And in general, I was thinking about like, okay, well, I like the card draw economy. I played Hearthstone for a very long time, and I
Mm.
liked the feeling of having to think about investing in card draw.
Mm.
Um, the version of this game that you can play right now, you don't have to think about card draw at all. The cards that you have that draw additional cards are basically worthless because you draw up to your hand limit every time.
Okay.
What I've done is in the top corner here, you can see this is what I was getting to. Is this is my point? It's a completely temporary UI display, and what it says is I can press the number 1 key to draw a card,
Mm.
and I can do that as many times as I want. It costs 2 mana, but I can just keep
Okay.
on drawing cards. So now there are cards that draw mana. There are cards that you can play that draw other cards, and they have
Yeah.
a purpose because it's cheaper to play a card like Arcane Lock, which does something and you draw a card, instead of spending 2 mana to draw a card. You also have the option of just pressing the number 2 key, and now you can get rid of a card in your hand and you draw one for cheaper. Like, because it's 1 mana, but you have to discard something, so you're cycling a card out.
Mm.
But this is what I thought would be an interesting balance, because now you you're playing a Slay the Spire type game where you do have to put money towards you do have to put mana towards drawing cards. Your hand doesn't fully redraw every turn, but you
Mm.
also don't just draw one card every turn, which was the case when the game first came out in the like very original Jam version.
Yeah.
Um, and that seemed like an interesting space to me. So I wanted to develop this a little bit further, but nonetheless, here I am with this temporary UI in the top corner of the screen where you can, press the number 1 or number 2 keys, and it's pretty jank, not gonna lie.
Mm.
But
Mm.
it was a way for me to test the gameplay. So I guess with your game, what I would say is don't worry about the polish. Excuse me.
Mhm.
Don't worry about the artwork. Don't worry about anything other than strictly getting stuff into place and testing it mechanically. You don't need
Mm.
the character to animate. You just need boxes for stuff. You just need like temporary text UI on the screen. As long as that lets you test some gameplay element, um, because it is the gameplay that you want to see. That is what you want to evaluate if it's worth taking it further. How much flexibility, how much depth can you wring out of this concept? Can
Yeah.
you find the fun with that idea?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think we might have done less of that kind of prototyping stage in kind of low fidelity prototyping stage in this. But yeah, I think that's a good kind of approach to.
And that's absolutely to be expected, and it is why I'm
Mm.
kind of falling out of love with game jams, because
Mm.
I love game jams for that initial push of like, oh my god, I working together with Ferrosphere, I made that original Dice Spect game in about 26 hours worth of work on my part. Yeah, I spent
Mm.
about 26 hours. I already had a turn-based battle system in place, so but like all the mechanics to do with the cards and the enemy AI and like just there was a lot of work to do, obviously, to build out a system like this.
Mm-hmm.
But now that initial push has happened and I got some feedback and I'm happy with what's there, now is my opportunity to start exploring the the design space, the possibility is where I can take this, and that's where I'm just going in with the temporary UI. I don't care what, like, I'm not trying to polish it, because that's the problem with game jams, is that they have to be a polished experience. It seems like I don't know. I want to. I've always like gone back and forth on the idea of hosting a game jam, but I would love it if there was certain, like, some game jams out there that were like, this is the prototype jam. Stuff is going to be janky. Expect to press number keys on your keyboard to activate certain functions because there is no UI, because UI takes time and it's going to change at the end of the game. So if you spend a bunch of time developing UI for your game, and then you playtest it and you realize that, like, oh, actually the interface for this should be completely different, you gotta scrap all that UI. Like, it has to be programmer art, it has to be boxes, it has to be basic stuff. But what you're evaluating is the nature of the gameplay itself.
Maybe you could get minus points for polish.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
You're yeah, you've got a 5-star rating system, except it's called unpolished, and you have to give it a 5-star rating if it is just a bunch of gray boxes and temporary programmer art.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
So
I think I did see a game jam recently where there was, I don't know if it was the whole thing. I only briefly looked at it, but there was a stage of pitching to begin with. So yeah, that kind of separated out the rush of come up with an idea and create it in 24 to 72 hours type approach, and allowed people space just to think, I think.
yeah.
But I guess at the same time, it's you can think so much, but yeah, actually creating a prototype and playing around with it and seeing how it feels is a different is a necessary step, I think.
Yeah, because I want to make it clear that I like the principle, and I was kind of alluding to this, but I like the principle of a game jam, that you just set aside a weekend and you just crunch to build something, because long-term sustained crunch imposed by employers, bad. Short-term self-imposed artistic endeavors, up to you. It's not always inherently a bad thing. Sometimes you're really busy in your life and it's hard to set aside consistent amount of times every day or every week, but you can kind of make arrangements with your partner, or cook for yourself to make a couple extra meals in advance, and just think like, okay, I'm just gonna sit down and make this weekend. So for that reason, I really like game jams. I also know that some of these bigger game jams have become like popularity contests, and it has to look good, it has to look polished, it has to look like a game that's ready to go up on Steam, and if it isn't, then people start complaining about it because they're getting their expectations set by people who have won past game jams, and it's kind of this snowballing effect. So I think there's room for someone to come in and be like, hey, this game jam is all about making a prototype. Chill out. It's just about evaluating the gameplay and testing an idea that's been rattling around in your brain.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So,
I suppose,
sorry, go ahead.
I suppose you could also, rather than giving negative points for polish, you could just take out if there's even a rating system at all, you could just take out the graphics department or the
easily
audio department or whatever.
The reason that I'm saying all this, by the way, is because that is much more true to professional game development for those that are interested in it. Because the mantra of fail faster, of like build something, evaluate it, see what people think of it, and if it doesn't work, then drop it and move on. Game jams should be very good for that, but we can get very caught up in the polish, and we don't think about the fact that it's like, well, maybe what's here is enough, and it's proof that this was a fun idea to mess around with, but I can't really see how to extend it further, so I'm just gonna kind of leave it as is. I've made some game jams, some game jam games that I'm very happy with, but I know it's not worth spending more time on developing them. Like, I will often, not all the time, but I will often go back in and make a post-jam version just to like clean up some of the most egregious stuff based on feedback. But in general, yeah, I think that if you if you are approaching games from that mantra of fail faster, then the emphasis on polish is a bit misleading, shall we say?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. My
Um,
my day job is kind of an agile agency in software development, so fail fast is definitely
yeah,
our approach. So I think it's a good
exactly.
one to take in all software development, whether it's websites or games.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so anyway, sorry for I'll get down off the soapbox now, but I appreciate you hearing me out. And yeah, I would love if you have the opportunity to make a like rough version, an update to this game. Like I'm always happy to check it out.
Thanks.
I I fully acknowledge that with the temporary UI stuff that I was building into my game here, that what's nice about Polish is that I can just send something to somebody and expect them to be able to figure it out and play it on their own.
Mm,
With the game being in a rough state, I have to break one of my main rules as a designer and actually tell the person how to play the game.
yeah.
Usually, I would like to avoid that. I would like to see if they can figure it out on their own. But I can't, not with this one.
Mhm.
So there, I know I just went on this like very long spiel about how like, oh, you don't need polish. It's like, well, you need to explain the basics so that someone knows how to play your game, and
Mhm.
then see if they can figure out the intricacies. It's a harder line to define, but I hope that the distinction is still clear.
Yeah. Do you do that through in-game tutorializing even without polish, or do you do that by actually just literally telling the person that you're asking to play the game?
Well, in the case of most of my jam games, I've been using a sort of like template that's allowed
Mm,
me to at least put the controls in game. So
hmm
this like menu system with the controls being displayed, um, and then sometimes that will give like an additional explanation of like how the game works. It's a template that I've been able to reuse through a lot of different game jams at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but in the case that I'm talking about now, like, yeah, if there are just buttons on the screen that I need to explain what those do. I need to like, okay, draw a card is obvious, but do you know that just because there's a number one in the top left corner of this UI here, that pressing the number one key will actually draw you a card? I don't think that's
Mm,
intuitive. Also, there's this like all these symbols in the corners and on the cards, and what does any of this mean? Like, there's a base level for a game that is this complex that I feel like I do need to explain to people, because otherwise I can't get an honest evaluation of, again, way it cycles back. The most important thing to me is evaluating the gameplay. Like, let's
mm,
assume that we bring someone up to a level of understanding where they know what the mechanics are. Do they have
yeah.
fun playing the game? And if the answer is no, like they understand the game, but they're not having fun, that's much more important to me than they don't understand the mechanics, therefore they're not having fun. Then the question I have to ask is, well, if they understood the mechanics, would they be having fun? Like that is going to be assuming that a polished version of this game exists somewhere down the line in the future, that I have built a fully fledged tutorial to explain this. Is that
Mm,
version of the game fun? Because I think it's fun, because I know how it works. But
mhm.
is it just, am I building something for me, or am I building something that's going to be fun to other people?
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
sorry, I know I've gone on a lot of rambling tangents here. I'm a little tired, but Ynda, thank you so
No,
much for joining
it
me
was
on the
fun.
stream. I wish you best of luck with closing time or any future game jams that you participate in. And
Thanks.
yeah, hope you have a great weekend.
Yep, you too.
All right. Bye bye for
All right.
now.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. And that is basically going to do it for us for today. We're going to wrap things up here. Actually, I should drop a link in the chat to the game. I nearly forgot to do that. There we go.